So with the NFL offseason in full swing, a lot of people are asking questions about the Atlanta Falcons. And the main question that I've wanted to ask, should the Atlanta Falcons trade Matt Ryan? I'm going to give you the answer to that question. I think yes. I have my reasoning. I have possible trades. But of course, before I get into all of that, make sure to like, subscribe, turn the notification bell. You guys help me out a little bit. And without further ado, let's get right into this video. Now, of course, we're going to go into some notes first. Reasons why the Atlanta Falcons should possibly trade Matt Ryan, or just some simple notes. Now, of course, last year, Matt Ryan had 3,968 passing yards with 20 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. Matt Ryan will also have the biggest cap hit in the NFL next year, which would be worth over $48 million in cap hit for the Atlanta Falcons. Of course, it will be challenging to trade Matt Ryan because of that major, huge contract that we've given him. And of course, the Atlanta Falcons also last had a winning season in 2017 in which they went 10-6. Matt Ryan also missed Julio Jones this year. I know Julio Jones wasn't specifically great in Tennessee. However, he was Matt Ryan's main playmaker, and you could really see where Matt Ryan missed Julio Jones this season. I definitely think that's worth noting. And Matt Ryan is also getting older. He's not getting any better. He's 37 years old and will be 37 next season. Now, of course, going to some reasons why the Atlanta Falcons should possibly trade Matt Ryan. Reason number one, a trade could potentially open up a lot of cap space. This is the obvious. I mean, Matt Ryan has a $48 million cap hit next season. That is the highest in the league. If we trade Matt Ryan, we could potentially free up a lot of cap space, and that could definitely give us some room to sign some free agents, sign some draftees, do a whole bunch of stuff with the extended amount of money, the ridiculous amount of money we would have if we managed to trade Matt Ryan in this huge contract. Now, of course, Matt Ryan's stats, going into number two, they have not been specifically great since 2018, in which he had 35 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Matt Ryan has not been a great quarterback over the last couple of years. Yes, he's still serviceable. He will still provide you very decent production, especially at his older age. However, he hasn't been specifically great, and I think the Atlanta Falcons, as a team right now, they need a great quarterback. They need a guy in their prime. Matt Ryan's just not that guy right now. That's another reason why I think the Falcons should trade him. Now, reason number three, of course, it is clear that Matt Ryan is not going to lead the Atlanta Falcons to the promised land. Yes, Matt Ryan's a great quarterback. Yes, Matt Ryan is one of the better quarterbacks of all time, especially when looking at the Atlanta Falcons. He might be the Atlanta Falcons' best quarterback of all time. However, getting back to the main point, Matt Ryan's not going to lead the Falcons to the Super Bowl, and the Falcons seem to be very focused on contending right now. They haven't made a choice yet, seemingly, which is, of course, very frustrating from a fan's perspective. However, if the Atlanta Falcons intend on even being just a competitive team in the next upcoming years, they're going to have to get a guy who is going to lead them to the promised land. I don't think Matt Ryan's that guy, unfortunately. Now, of course, going to the next reason number four, Matt Ryan is getting paid $40 million as a 37-year-old quarterback next season. That is not saying Matt Ryan is bad. That is just saying that for a 37-year-old who's not getting any better, let's just state the facts here. Matt Ryan's not getting any better at 37 years old. For a 37-year-old who's not getting any better, $40 million is a lot to be paying Matt Ryan. That's a lot of money, and of course, if you trade away Matt Ryan, you'll get rid of some of that. Now, of course, going into the fifth reason, you have a lot of quarterback classes coming in. Of course, you have a lot of guys coming in this year. You have Kenny Pickett, a guy who I really like. He's personally my favorite quarterback of the class. You also have Matt Corral. You have a lot of different quarterbacks. You have Malik Willis. You have the next generation of quarterbacks coming in. I think you have to put more time grooming into those guys than trying to make Matt Ryan your main starter. Matt Ryan's an older quarterback. He's a great quarterback nonetheless, but he's just not going to be the guy right now. I do think you potentially have the guy in the next coming drafts, or maybe even this year's draft. I think the Atlanta Falcons should definitely groom more of those guys rather than putting all this time, pace, and energy into Matt Ryan. Of course, going to the next reason, I believe this is reason number 6. Matt Ryan, they've changed this team a lot. And I just have to state the fact. The Atlanta Falcons have changed their team a lot this season. Of course, with Terry Fondant being the brand new GM of the team. Of course, you have Arthur Smith, the new head coach of the team. You have a lot of changes for the Atlanta Falcons and a lot of changes still to come. I don't think Matt Ryan fits the future of this team. I think he fit the past of the team. He fit the Julio Jones, the Roddy White, the Tony Gonzalez era of the team. I don't think Matt Ryan fits this era of the team at all. And that's no shade on Matt Ryan. It's just just not a good fit. And I've said this since the beginning of last season. I don't think Matt Ryan's a good fit for this Atlanta Falcons team at the quarterback position. I don't think he's the quarterback of the future. That's another reason why I think we should trade him right now while he still has some value. And of course, speaking of value, the last reason, Matt Ryan, him getting traded could potentially get the Atlanta Falcons some very, very needed pieces in return. That being receivers, pass rushers, safeties, etc. A whole bunch of players, a whole bunch of positions of need for the Atlanta Falcons. Now, speaking of those positions of need, we're getting into the video that you were probably waiting for, my proposed and possible trades. Now, of course, the first trade, it's fairly simple. The Atlanta Falcons, they would trade Matt Ryan in the 3rd round pick to the New York Giants for Saquon Barkley and a 2nd round pick. I think this trade can benefit both teams. Matt Ryan going to the New York Giants will give the Giants a quarterback. I wouldn't say a quarterback of the future, but a guy who can definitely be serviceable. They already have Kenny Golladay over there, a potential #1 receiver, along with Sterling Shepard. So Matt Ryan could potentially do some with those two guys. And of course, you have the 3rd round pick. The New York Giants can definitely use that. And of course, as for the Atlanta Falcons, they would get back Saquon Barkley in a 2nd round pick. Saquon Barkley offers a very needed playmaker out of the backfield for the Atlanta Falcons. Him and Mike Davis, I think, would be a very great 1-2 combo because, as we know, Saquon Barkley has injury issues, and Mike Davis can kind of go in and take that pounding from time to time. And of course, a 2nd round pick. We all know the Atlanta Falcons can put that to use. 2nd round picks have been actually very, very nice to us over the last couple years. Atlanta Falcons middle linebacker Deion Jones, actually a one-time Pro Bowler, came as a 2nd round pick. So the 2nd round pick can definitely serve the Atlanta Falcons well. I think this trade can serve both teams very, very well. And of course, trade number 2. Trade number 2 is a little bit more difficult. It's a little bit more intricate. Now, of course, this trade is between the Atlanta Falcons and the Washington Commanders. And the Atlanta Falcons, they would trade Matt Ryan, Calvin Ridley, and a 2nd round pick for the Washington Commanders, Tyler Heinicke, quarterback. Of course, you would get interior lineman, Jonathan Allen, and you'd also get Montez Sweat. Now, of course, how would this benefit both teams? I think the Washington Commanders, they've needed a quarterback for a long time. They are a team with a very, very great defense. They're a team with very, very good receivers. And, of course, Calvin Ridley is going to add to those great receivers. Of course, a 1-2 punch with Calvin Ridley and Terry McLaurin would be very, 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 very dangerous for the rest of the division for the Washington Commanders. And, of course, Matt Ryan, bringing him in, that's just going to add on. I think Matt Ryan could very, very, very well be a great quarterback case. And, of course, the Washington Commanders and the Atlanta Falcons, I think the Falcons could really benefit from Tyler Heinicke. I don't think Tyler Heinicke is specifically the great quarterback. However, he is a placeholder, at least until the Atlanta Falcons find a younger guy, a guy they can groom. Jonathan Allen's one of the better interior defensive linemen in the league. I think him and Grady Jarrett can do a lot of damage when it comes to the interior. And, of course, Montez Sweat, one of the better elite, I would say, edge rushers in his division. He's not a 10, 20 sack guy, but he's definitely a guy that can cause some disruption. He had a very, very great 40 time in his combine a couple years ago. He's still young. I think both of these teams can benefit from this trade. Now, of course, going into the 3rd and final trade of the video, you have the Falcons and the New York Jets. The Atlanta Falcons would trade away Matt Ryan, Calvin Ridley, and the 8th overall pick for the New York Jets safety Marcus May and the 4th overall pick. I think this can once again benefit both teams. The Jets would get the quarterback that they need in Matt Ryan, and they would also get a playmaker in Calvin Ridley along with the 8th overall pick. They get a later pick. However, the Atlanta Falcons in return, they get a needed safety in Marcus May, and they'd also get the 4th overall pick in the draft, in which they can probably get a defensive lineman, which would, I would guess, end up being Kevon Thibodeau or Aiden Hutchinson, or they can end up getting an offensive lineman, another position of need, which I would want to be Evan Neal. But of course, that's going to be the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Of course, TikTok, audio podcast, Spotify, all those links are going to be in the description. You guys check those out for me, like, subscribe, all of those. But whether you do that or not, I wish nothing but the best for you. I wish that you stay loved and stay blessed. And without further ado, I'm going to end this video. Thank you for watching.
Wanna be rappers, brag about already being the best. I respect many people for the job they've done. Haters full of jealousy is what I like especially. I like a lot of funky man that lack finesse. Wanna be rappers, brag about already being the best. I respect many people for the job they've done.